Shalom Aleichem. We are learning the Sikha of Vaera Aleph. It's a packed Sikha focusing on the Rashi Mekotze Ruach, why he says it different than Parsha Shmois, the difference between Maisa Avos and Chelik HaGadosh of the Torah, the Chelik HaPshat, etc. Now, the original Farbrengen was a Tafshin Lamed Aleph Farbrengen Parshas Vaera Mevarchem HaChodesh. In those days, they were pretty much only Farbrengen on Shabbos when it was a Yom Tov or Shabbos Mevarchem. And there's a long introduction to the Sikha and a long follow-up to the Sikha. Pretty much, it's almost half of the Farbrengen is about the Nakuda that is in the Sikha. It's quite fascinating, and yeah, it's quite packed. Sorry, quickly, I noticed that literally the whole Farbrengen is on it. So if you go into Teres Menachem, Chelik Samach Gimel, you'll go from page 35 to 55, and pretty much almost everything is connected. Pretty much everything's connected. Like you'll see different points, then the Rebbe says, it says over here, the Rebbe edited it, and it's part of the Farbrengen. The Rebbe edited it, it's part of the Farbrengen. So let's just focus on a few nuggets, because otherwise we could just be here all day. But I would strongly recommend to Pashat learn the whole Farbrengen. It's not that long, but it's beautiful. So one Nekudas Rebbe talks about is how is it possible that every Yid could learn Ahidah from the stuff Hashem said to Moshe? Can you be like Moshe Rabeinu? So he says like this, that he based on what the Tanya says, that Atu Yida Milsa Zuta, so each and every one of us has the ability to have Yida because we get from Moshe Rabeinu. So every single one of us has Moshe Rabeinu within us. And not only is it within us, it's not even hidden. There's a part of it that's revealed. Because then if you demand effort to reveal it, then it's not a milsa zutta, so it's not a small thing. So you must say that literally it's a small thing because it's revealed by every one of us, and therefore each and every one of us can learn something from Moshe Rabeinu. Then the Rebbe goes into the whole Sikha that we learn in Chelik Tazayin. And then the Rebbe talks about another Nekuda, another thing that you could explain why Moshe asked Lamari Oisa Dafka, because he was able to grow up in the base pattern. When Moshe was born, he was B'tachlis Hashlemus. His father was Amram, Gadol Hadoy, and one of the only Gedolei Hador in all the generations, that a mitzvah came through him. What mitzvah came through him? The Rambam writes, Nitztava Amram b'mitzvahs Yiseres. He got extra mitzvahs. And for example, the mitzvah of Likuchin, I think that's part of the ideas of marriage. Like Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. In other words, Amram was incredible. And Imai, his mother, is Yechevet. And even before he was born, just before he was born, he was incredible. Once he was born, his father by his Kali. And that's just from his birth. But after that, he got educated in Paro's house. And over there, he grew not only Begashmis, but also Beluchnis. How does the Rebbe know this? Because Rashi says Paro appointed him on his house, and it's understood that that appointment helped his Luchnis as well, his Chachma. He received from Chachmas Mitzrayim, and Taka was Chachma D'Lo Mezeh, but still it's the idea of Chachma, and that's a spiritual greatness. As we know, the Chachmas Mitzrayim was one of the greatest Chachmas and deepest and greatest in all of history, and like it says about Shlomo, when it's trying to say how amazing Shlomo was, Shlomo's greatness, wisdom was greater than Chachmas Mitzrayim. And over here you see an incredible thing, that even though he grew up in the Bayis of Pare, the second he went out to his brothers and he saw their pain, he felt their pain. Think about it for a minute. Many years in younger years and in his older years, he lived in Beis Pari Melech Mitzrayim. And the Pashtus, he was good. He was enjoying it. Not that Chas Hashem he was in Taivas, but he was in Chachmas Mitzrayim, the politics, etc. And he was a Melech Bekippur. He had no shaykhs, he had no connection to people that are slaves. And yet the moment he goes out of Beis Pari, it affected him so much, he was willing to have a serious nefesh to kill the mitzvah. Even though he knew that Ben Noach Chayev Misa alarigas adam be'isr, and therefore he himself would be chayav nisa. And also mitzat chachmas mitzayim, etc. We know that Pari wanted to kill him, and this is even a tinik shenishba, someone who didn't grow up amongst Yidden, which the Rebbe says that's the maimed matzav of a chelik chashuv, of a substantial amount of Bnei Yisrael, whether people literally were nishpa to the akum, or people were nishpa in the kei hanecha asher b'kir bechem, the Yetzer Hara. In other words, it's not the outside influence, it's the inside influence. Such an unbelievable race he is. But when you accomplish with him, they should have any shaykhs for Yiddishkeit, then you could immediately expect him to have a serious nefesh for Yiddishkeit and Yid. But he could say, what do you mean? I grew up by the Goyim. I just barely got out of captivity by the Goyim. How could you expect Mesiris Nefesh for Yiddishkeit and Yidden? And that's my whole life. So we tell him that's the way it was Moshe Rabeinu. He grew up in Beis Parim. And he was involved in Angetan Chachmas Mitzrayim. And yet he knew immediately that his Metzius and his goal was to have Mesiris Nefesh for Yid. And each and every one of us has this koyach. Rebbe has other ideas, but I think this hayra suffices as an incredibly powerful insight and an amazing criteria to share at your Shabbos table as well.